of Mr. Trump's victory, right, in the election. So this is a very critical moment. So it have a very strong symbolic role, in this visit, I think. So the visit, I hope that this visit can lay can have like a keynote visit, to lay the foundation for the future. I don't know how many years Trump will in the White House. At least 3 years, right? For the development.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt now, but you're now watching the live picture of the motorcades of the presidents driving down the Chang'an Avenue. That's the biggest thoroughfare in Beijing, in front of the Tiananmen Square. That's the Forbidden City you are watching right there. Both presidents had a tour in the Forbidden City last afternoon, I should say.
Yeah, these are stunning pictures here. All these sites are very well known all over the world. It's interesting seeing this street, which is usually clogged with traffic. It's right next to Tiananmen Square, which is a huge tourist attraction filled with thousands of people. It's interesting watching this now all cleared out for this very grand ceremony where President Xi will welcome President Trump to the great Hall of the People there, which is the seat of power for Chinese government. As our guest just mentioned, it was just last month that President Xi delivered his very long, grand speech to the Communist Party, the People's Congress there, and is now emerging here to meet President Trump.
All right.
On the front steps.
Yeah, you're now watching the President of People's Republic of China, President Xi Jinping, alongside with First Lady, Madam Peng Liyuan, stepping out, just emerged from the building of the Great Hall of the People. They're stepping down the red carpet. They're there to welcome the United States President Donald Trump. This is a state welcome ceremony. Protocol is very important in the Chinese governance and diplomacy if you're familiar with Chinese culture, and such events are usually carefully choreographed down to the smallest detail. And China obviously want to send out a message that U.S. President Donald Trump is well respected here. And whether that will play out, into China's advantage, whether that will accomplish on a diplomatic view standpoint, that remains to be seen, though.
Yeah, as you mentioned here, everything is perfectly choreographed. This is really beginning almost to the second on time here, as we see this big ceremony unfold here on live television broadcast all over the world. The Chinese government has said repeatedly that they are going out of their way to make President Trump feel honored and feel welcome in reciprocation for the way that the Chinese president, Xi Jinping, was welcomed in Florida soon after President Trump's inauguration. Apparently that trip made a very big impact on President Xi. And these are the pictures here. President Trump leaving the limousine to shake hands and greet the Chinese president and his wife.
Yeah, let's listen in for a moment.
Vice Chairman of the Chinese People's Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, 外交部长 Foreign Minister, 国家发改委主任 Minister of National Development and Reform Commission, 财政部长 Minister of Finance.
So as we're watching here, President Trump being introduced to all the different ministers here in China on the red carpet. As we keep on saying, China has rolled out the red carpet, literally and figuratively, to welcome him and his wife.
Yeah, and President Trump is being given this ceremonial reception in front of the Great Hall of the People. He was being introduced to the senior officials, including Foreign Minister and the Minister of Reform and Development Commission, and all the other big names in the political sector and also the business sector as well.
Thank you.
And this is
And that right there is the ambassador, right there, the American ambassador who just shook his hand to China, Edward Branstad.
Now it's Rex Tillerson up there. So now as the U.S. officials being introduced to President Xi.
To the President, Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations.
Morning.
Assistant to the President, National Security Advisor.
We're expecting this ceremony to take about 20 minutes or so.
Assistant to the President, Senior Advisor for Policy. Assistant to the President, Chief of Staff to the First Lady. Assistant to the President, Director of Communications. Assistant to the President, Staff Secretary. Assistant to the President, Director of Social Media. Advisor, Assistant to the President, Press Secretary, and General Counsel.
So if you're just joining us, you're watching live pictures of the welcoming ceremony in front of the Great Hall of the People. This is an important day, obviously, where the world will be watching how the bilateral ties between China and the U.S. would move forward from here, arguably the most important bilateral relationships in the world, and whether some solutions can be found to some of the most pressing security issues in the region.
Yeah, this is President Trump's third stop on his 12-day, five-nation Asian summit.
All right, let's listen in. Listen.
总统阁下，中国人民解放军仪仗队列队完毕，请您检阅。
You're now watching President Xi Jinping together with U.S. President Donald Trump walking along the red carpet to inspect military guard here. And the welcome ceremony in President Donald Trump's name is being held as we speak outside the Great Hall of the People. The military band had played the national anthem of the People's Republic of China and the United States, and President Trump is now inspecting the honor of guard with his Chinese counterpart now.
Yeah, China's pulling out all the stops for this visit. They've called it a state visit. Plus, they are putting on a full show. We know how how President Trump definitely likes the attention, and without question, this is designed to show China's respect to President Trump and to try to forge a very long-lasting, positive relationship.
Yeah, and this is their third face-to-face meeting. The first one was at Mar-a-Lago in the United States.
And this song right here is actually specially chosen too. This is the Stars and Stripes Forever, which is a John Philip Sousa march penned back in 1896. The fact that the Chinese government is having this song played with American children waving American and Chinese flags outside is of special significance right there.
Yeah. And today's meeting is really after, last afternoon's meeting in a more relaxed setting. They were speaking to each other in a more relaxed setting, which kind of...
they had tea, they watched an opera.
Yeah, and smoothed the relationship a little bit.
And now clearly they're trying to set the mood of excitement, of energy, of positive feelings here.
That's right.
It's interesting to watch all this unfold here for the American president and of course the Chinese president too, especially considering that President Trump is not enjoying incredible popularity ratings back at home. But here, President Xi is without question rolling out that red carpet as they walk down here with the children singing and dancing there, greeting the two leaders.
Yeah, they are waving these miniature flags, United States flag and Chinese flag, jumping up and down.
We saw one of the children earlier, which I thought was hilarious. The kid that did the kung fu moves there.
Really got the move there.
In a suit to boot. And so, pretty impressive. And now, obviously President Trump enjoying all this, greeting the children, saying hello.
He is.
Yeah, it's a big ceremony, a big moment for both leaders here.
Yeah, quite an elaborate official ceremony right there
And after this will be serious business. The two leaders are going to go inside the Great Hall of the People where they have some thorny issues to discuss. It's not just the DPRK issue, but also trade, the economy. There's a lot on the agenda, so they will meet behind closed doors and spend more time together, and then emerge later on this afternoon for a series of events and high-profile meetings.
Yeah, some of the issues, most pressing issues, as our guest mentioned a little earlier, would be the DPRK's nuclear program and the trade issues between the two countries. It'll be interesting to watch how U.S. President Donald Trump is going to change and adjust to a different audience now for the Chinese. He was just traveling from South Korea, giving this really big speech on the DPRK problem in front of National Assembly there in Seoul. And now he is in China. So how he will adjust that tone to his Chinese counterpart, that'll be interesting to watch.
We've seen a lot of changes in President Trump's tones over the months.
Yeah.
We saw during the campaign he was very harsh and very critical of China. Once he got inaugurated, that tone has changed considerably. He describes President Xi as a good friend. He says they have a warm relationship. Although they disagree on several big issues, DPRK is just one of them. And so we'll see what kind of impact this meeting has between the two leaders over the months and weeks ahead as they try to tackle some of these these thornier issues.
Yeah, let me just bring our guests back in. Mr. Donnan, Mr. Trump actually spoke highly about Chinese president, giving personal praises. I'm sorry, I have to pause for a little bit to let our viewers to
kind of
take
soak
in all the
atmosphere.
image. Yeah. Just going back to the question before, Mr. Dunham, I was saying Mr. Trump has been given these high personal praises to Mr. Xi. I'm quoting his words. He says, Mr. Xi is a powerful man. I happen to think he's a very good person. But he also says this won't stop him from getting tough with China on certain issues. What is he prepared to do, and how he's planning to do that?
Well, I think having said that he likes him and he trusts him, it makes it possible for him to criticize the policies of China without making it personal. I mean, I know that's one thing. If you go back to Hillary Clinton had some problems with the Chinese government and Chinese people because of the tone, and so her criticisms became personal. I think this is the way you negotiate. You say, I trust you, but we disagree on this. And I think that trade is thorny, but I'm interested in what happens on some foreign policy issues like in Pakistan and India or the South China Sea, because that's where personal relationships become very important, where there's not a deliverable in the same way. But I do think that behind closed doors, they will talk about what they want. The reality is hard bargaining and seeing if there is any common ground where they can move forward.
There's a lot to consider there. Let's take a moment here to listen to some of the music and pageantry put on display for the two presidents. So again, these are live pictures coming from the Great Hall of the People of President Xi and President Trump right there, walking side by side along the red carpet up to the steps here for this very, very special welcome to President Trump to China.
That is right, and they are heading back to the Great Hall of the People where they're expected to have closed-door meetings. I've been told they're going to have 2 sessions of closed-door meetings, and they're about to deliver remarks after the first session, and when that happens, we'll obviously bring that to you live as well.
And just to give you guys at home some perspective here, this is a very formal welcome ceremony that China considers its highest regard for a visiting head of state. This is not necessarily normal. This is not what a foreign leader or a foreign president might necessarily get. China really is putting on a show to make sure that President Trump feels welcome and to build a good relationship between the two leaders.
That's right. As you said, the highest level for a state leader's welcoming ceremony. We've heard the 21 gun salute that's been given to President Trump. That is the highest level of military honor in this kind of setting, reserved only for heads of state. He inspected the military guard. You know, he was welcomed by Chinese American school children waving Chinese and U.S. flags. It was really
this trip
a
has
ceremony
been and this trip has been peppered with all sorts of unprecedented events. The fact that the American president, Donald Trump, had dinner inside the Forbidden City yesterday with President Xi, and also a very rare special moment that is not usually enjoyed with a visiting head of state.